This is Steve Hiles welcoming you to episode 38 of the Teacher Rockstar podcast, a place where tips and strategies critical to the new teacher are discussed. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about accommodations for students with exceptionalities. But before we do, a quick word from our sponsor. Would you like to supercharge your classroom management skills? Well, if you're a brand new teacher, a student teacher, or perhaps a teacher returning back to the classroom, the Teacher Rockstar Academy course is for you. Gain the confidence, the skills you'll need to crush it on day one and beyond. The course includes email support for 365 days, one-on-one coaching, and some super cool bonuses. Enroll now at the teacherrockstaracademy.com. That's teacherrockstaracademy.com. This will be a transformational experience and put your teaching career on a whole new trajectory. Okay, let's dive right in. Not all students have the same abilities as others. Some need extra attention, care, and accommodations to help them succeed. The key to success in the classroom lies in having appropriate adaptations, accommodations, and modifications in accordance with instruction and other classroom activities. Now, if you are an educator and have students with learning disabilities, you obviously want to give them the best possible education they deserve. It is not always obvious what adaptations, accommodations, or modifications would be beneficial for a particular student or how changes to the curriculum, its presentation, the classroom setting, or student evaluations might be made. This podcast is intended to help teachers and others find information that can guide them in making appropriate changes in the classroom based on what their students need. And I think this information is very critical to obviously the brand new teacher just fresh out of college here. So with that said, we're going to go through different approaches to help you plan a better learning environment and to accommodate your students with exceptionalities. Okay, one thing I want to point out here is that accommodations and modifications, they're two different things. I know sometimes educators might use them interchangeably, but they are not the same. Okay, take note. Accommodations deal with how a student learns, and modifications, on the other hand, is what needs to be adjusted with respect to what's being taught. I hope that's clear enough. Both are tactics to improve your students' ability to learn within the classroom setting and mitigate the symptoms that hound disorders. An essential point to add here is that accommodations and modifications should never just be used for testing situations, but for all learning environments. When planning your IEP, make it a point to check that the adjustments are made available all year round and in all learning environments. As for all children with learning and attention challenges, it is important to recognize and reward good behavior. Create a set of realistic goals and expectations for your student with the input of other professionals. These reward systems go a long, long way in teaching your student coping skills and self-control. Remember, what works well for one child will not necessarily work well for another. Okay, so that's one thing to kind of keep in mind here. There are thousands of ideas out there, but be sure to find one that interests your student. And don't be discouraged when one that stops working after a while, okay? Due to the nature of learning and behavior, challenges, changing reward systems is just a normal part of the accommodation process. Now, let us move towards the challenges to learn best practices to deal with them, okay? We're going to talk about ADD and ADHD accommodations and modifications. Increasing focus, reducing distractive behavior, and controlling impulsive outbursts and actions are the main factors when choosing accommodations and modifications for ADD and ADHD. It could be as simple as keeping a student away from windows and doors or providing a physical activity, such as a stress ball to squeeze to counteract the fidgeting. A more complex accommodation might include providing balance, stability ball chairs for a student with severe ADD, ADHD. These chairs are known to activate both sides of the brain at once, thus providing the stimulation an ADHD student needs to increase concentration, improve note-taking, and enhance information processing. There are many student learning disability studies and many more teachers and parents that support this claim. Now, some modifications that might appear on an IEP are adjustments in timed assignments, providing worksheets with fewer problems and in larger font, the assistance of some technology, and a quiet space for testing. There are as many modifications as there are students in a classroom. Okay. Now let's go ahead and move on to dyslexia accommodations. Now, accommodations and modifications for dyslexia will look both similar and different than those for ADHD. The presentation of instruction could and should include both audio and visual version. Many veteran teachers have found great success in providing dyslexic students both an audio book and a hard copy book for whatever piece of literature that they were currently teaching. Now, other accommodations might include repeating instructions, larger print in specific fonts, and highlighting key words and points in a lesson. Where dyslexic accommodations most drastically differ from other learning disabilities is in the assistance of technology. Okay, this is a very important note here because over the years there has been many inventions that have eased the strain faced by the dyslexic student. The use of tablet and or a smartphone has done wonders for these kids. Instead of concentrating so hard to write down notes and losing the content of the lesson, they can now take a quick photo of the whiteboard while listening to the teacher and refer to the notes later on for deeper comprehension. There is also a variety of software that supports spelling, writing, speech to text, reading phonics, and reading comprehension. With the help of these tools, there is often little need for actual content modifications. Okay, let's move on to reading disabilities. Now, since reading is central to learning, children who do not learn to read by the second grade are likely to struggle with learning throughout their lives. Okay, so reading assessment should include skill levels in decoding, fluency, and comprehension. As children learn to read, they learn how spoken and written language relates to each other. Thus, the components of a reading program must also relate to one another, engage all children, and meet their individual needs. Now, reading activities may include, this is just a short list, uh, listening to good stories and books appropriate to the child's age. Also, read aloud daily. Now, this is something I always did in my classroom. If I didn't have time for anything else, let me assure you, I always got a good book and read to my kids. The next thing it would be like language games that encourage identification of rhyming words and creation of rhymes, instruction and practice in phonemic awareness, alphabetic knowledge, alphabetic principles, decoding strategies, vocabulary acquisition, fluency, and comprehension. Lastly, additional reading instruction in a small group or tutoring session before or after school and during summer classes. Now, before we go ahead and move on, here's another quick word from our sponsor. Imagine having access to educational products, instructional videos, teacher podcasts, and articles worth over $1,000 for just pennies a day. Wouldn't that be awesome? And you know what the best part is? You get a 7-day free trial. So really, what do you have to lose? Check it out. Take a good look around. All you simply have to do is go to myteachermembership.com. That's myteachermembership.com. I will be adding more products each and every month. You're going to love being a part of this teacher membership community. Okay, let's continue on. The last thing I wanted to cover here is teaching mathematics, okay? Theories on mathematics disabilities view spatial visualization and verbal skills as critical. These two skill areas are important for anyone learning mathematics, but are especially important for students with learning disabilities. These areas should be heavily emphasized in the teaching and remediation of mathematical concepts and skills. An individualized education program in mathematics would concentrate on developing concepts and skills within such strands as numeration, geometry, measurement, collection and interpretation of data, estimation, mental computations, patterns and relationships, and word problems and applications. Concepts are best introduced with hands-on concrete materials. Knowing one-digit facts is important, but work with paper and pencil algorithms should not be emphasized since calculations can be done with calculators if memory or sequencing is a problem. Estimation strategies are often taught as mental computation skills are developed. Students should be encouraged to draw illustrations and representations whenever possible. They should consistently discuss, read, and write as they solve more complex computational and word problems. For students with learning disabilities, confidence in the practical applications of mathematics to everyday life is also very, very important. And I want to interject something here as well. You get the opportunity, check out Singapore Math Instruction, one of the best workshops I've ever attended. And it really helped my kids. Okay, they really expound on the fact of actually drawing pictures and illustrations and things of that nature. So that's Singapore Math. Okay, my friend, that brings us up to the end of this episode. I hope you found these tips and strategies valuable. Thank you for listening to the Teacher Rockstar podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hiles. When you get a moment, visit my blog and subscribe to my newsletter for the latest educational research, freebies, and unadvertised bonuses. All you simply have to do is go to stevesclassroomresources.blogspot.com. That's stevesclassroomresources.blogspot.com. And don't forget to subscribe to us at the Teacher Rockstar podcast. And if you'd like to support us, please feel free to share our podcast with others. Post about it on social media. Leave us a rating and review. That would be super, super cool. Thanks again, and we'll see you same time, same place next week. And remember, friend, you got this.